What's this? Another Marvelous Designer video? I thought we said we were going to ZBrush. Ah, yes, but I thought whilst we're here, we may as well go ahead and make the kind of ruffled collar first, which, well, Marvelous Designer can take advantage of. Now, there's two schools of thought for this. I'm just going to preface this straight away. If you're intending to use kind of Unreal Engine's clothing modifier physics thing, I forgot what it's called, in Unreal, then this might be a step that you might consider a little bit unnecessary, okay? But what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to create the ruffled collars here, just in case the clothing simulation in Unreal doesn't quite give us the result that I'm looking for. So let's go ahead and make the ruffled kind of collar first. Now you see what I've done here is I've I've kind of loaded back up again the completed t-shirt file. Okay, t-shirt, completed shirt file, and what we're gonna have to do a little bit is unfortunately kind of reverse engineer what we have done so far, just a teeny bit. Okay, we're gonna have to bring the collar up because as we're doing this, if you ever put a tie on before, you don't want the collar in the way, and well, Marvelous Designer, you definitely don't want that in the way. Okay, so we can just move it up out the way actually, and a new thing we could look at using is deactivate. And basically what that says is it just tells that, hey, don't do a thing anymore, you're done, don't do anything. Okay, and whilst we're working on this, we could actually deactivate something else here, but I do just want to freeze these just so that they're there when we do the ruffled collar. It does have something to fall against on her chest here, it doesn't just fall down completely. Okay, so speaking of ruffled collars, let's have a look at what we've got. So I found this picture, which is quite nice. Now this is kind of what I'm personally going for, except I don't like the bow fashion. Okay, I like the way the collar's sitting. It's slightly parted. The top button is undone, which I'm not sure if I want to copy exactly, but I do like the way that ruffle sits roughly there, kind of in the center of her chest, and it's a nice size. Okay. But I'm not going to do the bow, instead I'm going to replace it with this type of ruffle instead, where it's almost like a double layer kind of ruffle, and we've got this wrapping that goes around the top of it there. Okay, so that gives us a chance to put like a brooch or something on in the middle there, just like Lady Maria in our concept art. Okay, so how do we go ahead and do that? Well, a ruffle can be quite difficult to do, and what I mean by difficult is it can be quite complicated. It depends how cooperative Marvelous Design is feeling. Okay, so what I'm going to do first of all, before we create any kind of ruffling, is I'm just going to create another rectangle that's about as long as our collar, because we know that's a good size that goes around her whole neck now. Okay, and once we've done that, we can move that over to another area so we have something to work with. Okay, and now this as well, you could deactivate this as well. We don't need that. And let's just go ahead and kind of arrange it in the correct area. There we go. There we go. And actually what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to rotate it around because I want the kind of clasp to be at the back. Just because I'll show you why in just a second. Okay. So let's do that there. Okay. Right. So let's go ahead and we'll stitch that up. Stitch it to one side like that. Okay, now don't do anything just yet. Okay, don't hit simulate or anything like that just yet. Because what we're going to do now is we're going to have to measure how big we want our ruffle to be. So we want it roughly around there is good for me. Okay, so I'm thinking about there. So if we just kind of keep an eye on that and we just split this now. Let's split it into, well, so we want to split it roughly, right, let's kind of round out the number. Let's split it to roughly, let's see what 100 does for us. It could be, maybe 108 would be nice, right? Exactly where we pretty much put it. And then from the other side there, we'll do the same thing. We'll split it 108 there as well. Okay, so the total length that our ruffle has to sit in here is about 87.6. It's a bit specific, but it will be fine. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to create another rectangle that's just about the same length. Now you see I didn't measure that edge there because again this is just kind of, we're using kind of a ballpark guess. It doesn't have to be insanely accurate. Okay, and that's been created all the way over here. Now this is going to form our first ruffle, so we need to think about how big this is going to be, and of course it's going to flare out. Okay, so what we're going to need to do there is adjust the size of it. So let's bring it further down. Okay, maybe a tad, a little bit up a bit more. And all I'm going to do here is I'm going to split it in the middle. That's how to split. A split there. Okay. And I'm just going to draw an internal line. There we go. Okay. And all I'm going to ask it to do now is I'm going to cut and sew it. And you might be thinking, well, what's the point of doing that? Well, it's actually because I want to take advantage of symmetric linked editing. Okay, so when I change one side, the other side will affect as well. Now, how are we going to go about and do this? Well, that's a very good question. Okay, so if you just go ahead and try now, I just want to show you the pleats tool. This is not exactly going to create our ruffles straight away, but I just want to show you what the pleats tool can do. Okay, is if we click this line here and we right click and we offset as internal line, and let's say we want the pleats to be about 5mm thick, or we could kind of make that a bit bigger, we can actually determine the number of offsets. So let's bring that down. So 9mm seems to kind of evenly space those offset lines quite nicely. Go ahead and press OK. And it should do the same for the other side. Yep, and yes, thank you, Marvelous Designer. Excellent. So we're going to do the pleats. So click on the pleat tool at the top there, click, double click to the other side, and it's up to you what kind of pleats you want. I am going to go for some box pleats. I'm going to try them out, and I don't want crisp angles, so I'm going to actually reduce the forward angle down to something like 60 to 300. Okay, and you'll see what that does in just a second. Okay, if you're not sure, then play with those values or press OK. But what we need to do now is we need to sew these two halves to this line here, but it's not split in two, so of course we're going to have to split that as well. So a uniform split that, and you've guessed it already, we're going to sew this top part here there, and we're going to sew that top part there. And they're already sewn in the middle together, because when we cut it, we cut and sewed it. So let's go ahead and we'll simulate now, we'll see what happens. Okay, so the collar's going to wrap itself around the neck. It's going to think for a little bit, and you can see there that the ruffles are already kind of doing their job. And there we go. So it's ignoring any deactivated kind of garments we've got already. It's just gone ahead and done that around the neck. Now, is this a good result? Well, look at it. Not really. Okay, so the pleats there haven't quite worked out to the way we wanted them to. Okay, but it's nowhere near what we wanted it to. It's just straight. Not very helpful. Okay, so what are we going to do about that? Well, we actually have to add some curvature in it ourselves. Okay, but I just wanted to demonstrate that tool for you there, like that. Okay, so that's generally how the kind of pleats tool works, albeit not such a great demonstration, but these would fold over if there were enough pleats. Okay, so let's go ahead now and we'll create the actual ones we want to do. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and delete these. Now, let's create another rectangle, and I swear I'm not mad just yet. I know I'm just repeating myself, but now we're going to have to change this into very much a curved shape. In fact, I just made a mistake there. We're going to do the same thing we did last time. Split it in the middle. And we'll do the same here, split that in the middle. Alright, get an internal line, link them together, and we will split them. Let's cut and sew them. Fabulous. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take this corner here and move it up quite a bit. Okay, I'm going to take this, oh, sorry, hang on. Getting ahead of myself. Apply that linked editing. That's the whole reason why I did it. Okay, so we're going to move that up there. Okay, I'm going to move this slightly down here. The reason why we've done that is because we want this kind of rounded curvature. Okay, and speaking of curvature, we're going to introduce that right now. Okay, so it depends what kind of style you want. I want this kind of round pleats there. Okay, there we go. Make it as exaggerative as you like. You can always change the shape of this later, although it might be a little bit difficult later on. Okay, we'll just leave it like that. Anyway, let's go ahead and look at what's happening in the scene. And go ahead, we should be able to move them now. Yep. Thank you. Sometimes the gizmo tool just will not appear. Don't ask me why, it just does that. And let's go ahead and tell you what, let's make it a bit bigger. Just to make sure that when it does kind of wrap itself up, it does so with a lot of volume still. And you can go ahead and pre-stitch that if you'd like, that's fine. Okay, now remember when we said offset as internal line? Okay, look, if we do that here, it just ignores it. Okay, no matter what the settings we do here, it doesn't take into account the curve. Now that's really annoying, it's really frustrating. We're gonna have to do this manually, and we have to do it with internal lines and splits. So we'll click one edge here. In fact, we'll do the biggest edge first because it's a bit easier to see. And if we go to uniform split, we'll just increase that, and we can see how many kind of ruffles that we'll generally achieve. So let's just go ahead and say 10. Okay, I don't want my ruffles to be too thin, but we do have to split this also up by 10. Okay, there you go. Now what will probably happen here is the sewing has still been retained, which is nice. Okay, that will kind of stop a few issues from occurring. But now what we've got to do is we've got to have the arduous task of basically, yes, we have to match each and every one of the splits from the top to the bottom. And this is the most time consuming part. And just remember to click and double click when you're finished to finish off that internal line. Otherwise you'll just keep drawing internal lines eternally. And the nice thing about the symmetric pattern is we only have to do it once, thank heavens. Okay, but of course we can apply the pleats tool. Oops, wrong one. So same thing as we did last time, box pleats, and I'm going to choose maybe 60 to 300. Press OK. Right, that's all kind of stitched together. Let's see what our result is now when we hit spacebar. We should get a better result. And there we go, we're getting a bit more of a fancier kind of pleat going on there. And there you have it. Okay, so now we can see that now we have a lot more kind of offset internal lines there. We've got a much fancier kind of pleat, and we've got a nice curvature that's going on there. Okay, so that's basically the issue and how you would go ahead and make a ruffled collar simply by using the pleats tool. There are other more manual ways of doing it that are arguably better, but I want to kind of get into ZBrush as quickly as possible just so that we can start making some meaningful changes. So this is the way I will elect to do it this time. Okay, now let's say you have a change of heart, you want to change the size of something, you absolutely can. Okay, the offset internal lines will stay with you. So this looks a little bit small. If we look at our image here, that one there, it wants to kind of come down a little bit further, so let's go ahead and allow it to do so. And of course the symmetric editing will affect the other side as well. Bear in mind that the kind of strap has moved up a little bit, so we do have to take that into account, but that doesn't look too bad. That looks okay, and let's see if we can kind of shrink. Well, I think that should be okay. We can kind of select the general shape and maybe squeeze it in a bit more. Let's see what that does. Okay, right, let's hit spacebar. Let's simulate that again. And there we go. Okay, so like I said, that's the first layer. That's the first layer of the pleats there. Okay, we're going to go ahead and let's copy. Let's move this up a little bit. And we'll copy this. Control C, Control V. Paste it up there. And now we're going to make these significantly smaller. And they will want to spread out a little bit more, but of course it's up to you what kind of style you want. I might want to shrink them in just a tad more. Okay, actually, no, I might undo that. Might leave it maybe a little bit smaller. Okay, let's check the sewing. There's no sewing applied, so we're going to have to apply. Now this is the annoying part here. Now it's a split. What are we going to do? That kind of pre-sewing that we did doesn't apply anymore. So what can we do here? We're going to have to use pleats sewing. Okay, so if we click, double click, and then we click. Oh, it's not working for me. Sorry, just give me a second. Right, let's click, and we'll click to the other end, and then we'll click from here. And now this is a bit of a glitch with my system. It seems to want to go all the way around the edge, but it's fine. Just click somewhere to let it apply, and it's kind of created this extra blue line. Again, it's good that you see all the issues with my version here. Click the lines that simply don't matter for sewing and delete them. We also don't need this extended purple line, so delete them. But what you should have left there is this line there. So you see that that dark purple line, which is the stitch for this one here, is still present. So we just inherited 2 extra sewing lines. Don't ask me why, I simply don't know. We'll copy this one, reflect it over, and if you'd like we can go ahead and apply symmetric pattern editing there as well, and we'll do the same thing here. So pleat sewing to there, and then from there basically click anywhere to allow it to do its sewing, and then delete the extra stitches that we've got for some unexplained reason, and just check to make sure that is still there as so. And then now when we hit spacebar, we should get another set of pleats on top of pleats. But I forgot one critical step. Stop. We gotta sew these 2 together. Right, now you can simulate. And fingers crossed guys, we have a nice effect here. Yep, there you go. Okay. And that looks okay. All that we need to do now is just kind of come in, maybe adjust some of the size of this, see what you like. You see, size that you like things, and we also have to bring that collar down because it's riding all the way up her neck, and of course it does have to wrap itself around the outside of the collar of the shirt. Okay, but hopefully that's been informative in terms of how to create some kind of ruffled collars. Okay, the pleats tool is an amazing tool, albeit a little bit sketchy sometimes, but my advice to you would be sew before you start splitting anything and creating offset internal lines. Okay, you'll have a much less of a kind of headache inducing time. So I want to spend one more video just kind of getting the collar in the correct position there, not wrapped around the neck but more wrapped around the actual collar of the shirt, and then place of course the deactivated collar we got floating above her face here actually back into position, and let it sit hopefully without ruffling up too much of what we've already gone ahead and made.